Thanks for joining today. Guys, this webinar is titled Protecting Your Profitability in 2023. And as many of you know, yesterday was the first drop of the series of fee increases that are coming our way in 2023. And while this is kind of a heavy and dense topic to jump into right at the front of the year, we think it's critical to set you guys up for success and to really show you the impact of the fees and those other places that are squeezing your profitability in your business right now. And then lastly, what you can do about it. So we are going to be talking about this for weeks on end. We're so pumped to have some amazing experts in the room today, from Yael to Vanessa to Chelsea, and really excited for them to introduce themselves to you as well. So Yael, I'm going to let you start by introducing yourself, and then we'll pass the baton.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for having me. Very excited. My name is Yael. I'm one of the co-founders of Fortunet, which is an investment bank that helps sellers selling the business. So we work with over 40 or 45 businesses right now in the process of selling the business, and profitability is actually one of the most common conversation that we have. So that's briefly about me.
My name is Chelsea Cohen. I am the co-founder and CEO of SoStocked, also been selling on Amazon since 2014. And I've just been exposed to a lot of different sellers, worked for over 4 years directly with sellers on their inventory, on profitability. It's why SoStocked was created with specifically for profitability. So it's really been a mission of mine over the past, 4+ years to help sellers with profitability, and inventory and logistics is my focus on that.
I'm Vanessa Hung. I'm a community ambassador at Cohen and also CEO and founder of Online Seller Solutions. Everything that I'm doing in the space that I've been doing for 5 years now is helping sellers with unsexy stuff. I really stuff together at profitability because it has to do with how we manage our account, how we manage our business. We're really going to check out things that are not super sexy or super attractive, or it will be hard to change some processes in your business, but it's actually what really matters to protect those margins, to protect those profitability. So we've been helping sellers for a long time, and I had in this presentation will help you as well to get those tips and tricks and nuances on how to win the game of selling on Amazon.
Vanessa, your audio is glitching just a little bit. Did everybody else get that intro better than
Yeah. If you can fix it.
Okay. I just wanted to let you know
your
so
microphone
you
a bit.
change Wi-Fi's if possible. But just so you guys know, we are so lucky to have Vanessa on this. She is the deep diver on all things operations, knows how to unlock all kinds of things that no one would really know how to do or really care to dig deep into. And I know you guys love Vanessa, and she's been providing value to this community for years. So really pumped to have all of you guys on. we're going to talk today, guys, about the fees that are dropping. So we definitely want to get into that because we want to make sure that you're aware not only what fees are dropping, but also how those might impact you. But we also want to talk about the profitability squeeze in general. Why is it so hard right now? And what can we do about it? Like Yael said, their team works with businesses in and out, and one of the biggest conversations is always around profitability. So the first thing I want to do as we kick off this webinar is to actually frame why it's important to spend intentional time optimizing your profitability. I think a lot of sellers look at their numbers daily, but are they looking at the right numbers, and are they really looking at profitability? So what is important about looking at profitability, and why do we need to spend a ton of energy on that, especially in Q1 this year?
Sure. Yeah, I am dubbing this the year of profitability. A lot of people talk about scale, and the general consensus for people at the beginning of every year is, how do I grow my business? The answer to that is you cannot scale without profitability. You cannot scale without cash flow. You cannot have cash flow without profitability. And so that's the thing to focus on beyond anything else if you truly want to grow your business this year.
Yeah, maybe I'll add to
That's
that a kind of M&A perspective. From our perspective, since we help sellers selling the business, we look at the businesses, we analyze them, and we look at what buyers want. And I can tell you, first of all, that out of all the businesses we worked with this year, and we looked at the end of 2022, most of them grew on the top line. At least some growth, at least flat, but most of them saw a big hit on the profitability, and sometimes significant. So that has become the conversation that we're having with all the clients this year. How do you improve it, and how do buyers look at it? And I think today more than ever, even before, but these days more than ever, buyers are of course looking at the margins. They're looking for healthy margins, simply because businesses with low margins are riskier. I mean, you're having 2-3 changes like those that you're going to announce today, or what we had a couple of years ago with the shipping, and then you can end up with almost no margins. And so they're generally looking for healthy businesses with good margins. And good margins means, by the way, I'll give some numbers, but good margins means above 16, 17, above 20 is great. So that's what they're looking at. It's not easy to sell a business with 10% margins unless it's the case for 7 years, very steady. And so yeah.
I know we've talked about this in other conversations, but those margins are harder and harder to come by. And I know for a lot of sellers, float back 5-6 years, it was easier to hit that number than it is today. I know, Chelsea, you and Vanessa and some of y'all who are in the space at that early phase, achieving that margin wasn't the end of it wasn't the hardest thing. Whereas now today, there's so many different things squeezing into your profitability. Those numbers are actually pretty challenging, which is why we want to talk about it. I also know you guys have told me stories about, much like what Yael said, of people getting to the end of the year and realizing, wow, I thought I was crushing it, and actually I'm not.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. For me, I mean, I started selling in 2014, and it was common to launch a $15, $20 product and get 30%. There's not a lot of places to go at that point. And so if you start out with a very, very narrow profit margin, it used to be very predictable. We didn't have 3PLs. It was direct to FBA. Shipping was very predictable. Your timelines were very predictable. Everything was a lot more steady, a lot more predictable. When, a couple of years ago, things started shifting, things started changing, the fees started increasing and shipping, all of a sudden you're out of profit margins. Currently there's no room for error. And it's making it very difficult for people who do have smaller profit margins or do have lower priced products where they have nowhere to go, really.
So he called me and he said, like, yeah, I need to close my business. And I'm like, last year, I remember that we saw each other probably in the spring, and he was super excited because he rented a new space, like an 18,000 square foot like warehouse, and he was doing so well. Like, this is just for his business. And less than a year after that, he's like, I'm closing my business. So this guy is a reseller, or was in the reselling game. Okay, that's a little bit different than having a brand. Totally, like the margin side are way smaller, but you could see how people that know the game, like, this didn't happen because he lacks the knowledge, or he's not resourceful, or he didn't ask for help. It was because everything in the industry is changing. Like the rate or the margins that he had when he started like 7 years ago were not in the place right now. And it's as easy as supply chain hit with COVID, and that was a huge thing. Amazon is getting more expensive. So this is what we're going to talk today about, the fees. Like, we cannot get away with not paying the fees. And one thing that I don't like to say is like, we need to fight Amazon and these fees increase. No, we're not fighting anybody. We just need to adapt. We just need to look for opportunities to adapt, to be smarter and keep winning the game. And one of the things that I said is like, yeah, Amazon is a game with rules that are constantly changing and evolving. Like the rules in 2015 are not the rules in 2023, and we need to accept that. Like, this is an amazing opportunity. We are in an amazing space. E-commerce is not going anywhere anytime soon, like at all, but we need to be better at understanding our numbers and thinking on terms of bottom line instead of like top revenue, because people get flashy stuff of like, yeah, I'm a 7-figure, 8-figure, 10-figure seller, whatever, but at the end of the day, they're not even making 10% on profit, right? So that's where we want to help you to understand and frame the story different. Where this 2023 is not about how much revenue you did, it's how much money you put in your pocket.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add, to emphasize that point, it isn't just the beginner sellers that are not optimized for profit. It's 7-figure, 8-figure sellers. Talked to a multi 7-figure seller who is used to profiting hundreds of thousands of dollars, and last year lost hundreds of thousands of dollars and doesn't know where that money went. So it just shows you it's so important to understand your business. We're in a completely different climate. So even if you've been used to collecting profit without having to pay attention to it, we're beyond that point right now. And every business across the board really needs to realize that and to shift what they're doing and to develop a profitability plan, not just a marketing plan.
So good. And each of you guys are looking inside both beginner businesses, intermediate businesses, and those highly advanced businesses every single day. And so guys, you're hearing it from people who are looking at those numbers, looking at those books, and this issue is something we should all be thinking about. But what we want to frame is like, we really believe this can be your most profitable year yet, but it takes intentional work. And it takes going to those various corners of your business and making sure you have squeezed the profitability out of every single corner. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to go ahead and talk about the fees. So we're internally at Carbon 6, we're calling this the attack of the fees. We're trying to bring a little levity to the situation, but I think what we want to do today is walk you through the timeline of the fees that are dropping. What are those fees? And then what can you do about it? And then as we round the corner in the webinar, we'll also walk you through all those other places you can kind of start addressing profitability from those other angles in your business. So I'm gonna pass this to, I think, Vanessa, if you could walk us through fulfillment fees, like what's going on with fulfillment fees right now.
Yeah, so little bit background, guys. This is not new. Like, increases fees normally comes in Q1 every year. So if we see historically, every single year Amazon has increased the fees. Like, the cost of doing business is more every year. Therefore, this is what we're looking at. So when you see this chart, and this is one thing that really was shocking for us to see how much money or how much more you need to pay to keep using FBA, because most of the fees, I think the fees that we're going to talk about today, all of them except multi-channel sales of FBA, it's for people that are doing FBA. There are some changes to the merchant fulfill, but not as big as what we're seeing in FBA. So if you see the chart here, we have that in 2021, we didn't have the peak and non-peak brackets that Amazon released in 2022, so which made it more expensive to send inventory, to ship inventory through FBA during the holiday season, this past season in the Q4. And right now we're seeing again in 2023, everything together. So the brackets of non-peak and peak are not there anymore. So they're putting those together. So for some people that could be great, for the ones of you that have your season not in Q4, that's amazing. But for some others across the board, everything is going up. So this is not necessarily good news. And the thing that you see in the chart is very, very important to understand that here we're talking about fulfillment fees. So what you pay to use FBA, okay, the services, the logistics, return, customer service. we also have storage fees, and that's how you can see the months. So storing the inventory for 1 month, it costs you, depending on the year, you see there, and then 3 months, 6 months, and you see how that goes exponentially. The thing is the tolerance that Amazon have right now for inventory to be stuck in the warehouse, it's very minimal. So before we were seeing like long-term storage fees in 360 days, now they cut it to 180. So in yesterday, January 17, the new fulfillment fees are coming. Okay, so those mean that we don't have peak and non-peak anymore. Some tier sizes change. Dimensional weight came into the picture for all of the categories across the board. And also, one of the biggest things that we are seeing right now, and for me, that's probably the most concerning one, especially for people that don't have their business super optimized, is removal orders. Removal of dispose of orders are going very, very high. Because they're also getting into the dimensional weight tiers, and Chelsea will talk more about that. But the cost of sending inventory and then removing it will kill your profit completely. So when you get the white paper, you're gonna see the tables with the charts on all the prices and the examples. We did a case study. The increase was incredible. I think it was 93% on large and standard, which is mind-blowing. But now that you understand that, and those are the fees that you need to start paying attention. Now they are already implemented, so that happened yesterday. But to offset or to lower those fees, going back to the fulfillment part, is how can we reduce the size and weight of our product to fall into a smaller tier in the chart, right? So we're talking here about density. We need to optimize for density. We want small packages, but a little bit more weight, instead of big packages that are lightweight. Why? Because dimensional weight will kill you. So the thing we did, and that was super good that we did that example in the case study, we use a pillow. So pillows are very light and they're bulky. So you could see how much more they're paying for fulfillment fees just because they're not optimizing for packaging. So vacuum seal your things, talking to your supplier to maybe create a new packaging that is better. And also, one thing that I'll say, that will also get you into the program of the eco or the climate friendly batch, right? Because you have a very concise packaging. So smaller and lighter, it's way better. Consider
I wanted to
getting into small and light program.
Can I add something just there? Like, you have to, there is specific guidelines for the climate smaller packaging. So you need to make sure that you go through those guidelines, make sure that you're not adjusting things. If you're trying to get into that, you need to adjust it based on their guidelines in order to qualify. Amazon is very tricky with these things where you have to, enroll in small and light. You don't just change your pricing or change your packaging and then you're automatically in them. They are trying as much as possible not to reduce your fees.
And then you guys, Vanessa just mentioned a couple of times this white paper and a case study. If you aren't clear what she was referencing, we are imminently releasing an amazing white paper that Chelsea, Vanessa have authored alongside our team and Yael and a couple other contributors that's walking you through these in great detail. And we're showing this case study and how this plays out with dimensional weight included. So we're going to release that to you guys first for just coming and joining this webinar today. But we're going to break this down in that white paper in great detail. Yes. Vanessa, do you want to talk briefly about MCF too?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And lastly, MCF is multi-channel fulfillment. So if you're using FBA to leverage any other channel on the fulfillment side, be very mindful because single unit orders are going up incredibly. Like the fees are almost not worth to do business that way anymore. So the recommendation here is to cross promotion, trying to increase the value order on your other sites, other channels, multi-unit packet discounts, like buy 3 and get another free or something like that to make it less expensive
expensive to ship through the FBA program, but be very careful because those are going, I think that in percentage wise, I think those are the ones that increase the most. So Amazon is very aware that we're using the FBA channel as a hack to get better rates for the super fast shipping and all the Prime benefits. So be aware of that. And the other one that we were talking about, the removal, disposal and liquidation fees, the game here is forecasting, planning, and intensive inventory management. And I know Chelsea will talk more about that, but this is how it gets down to, right? We need to be extremely mindful, intentional of what we're gonna send, because we're in a position where either we pay a lot of money to have that there, or we run out of stock. So that's where we need to be getting better and better at inventory management.
Yep, removals have gotten insane. Like just a few years ago, I think it was 30 cents per unit. Now it's done based on dimensional weight, on cubic feet, and I believe it's gone from 52 cents to 97 cents per cubic foot just in this year. So you're going from 30 cents per unit to dimensional weight calculations with your products. Imagine a pillow used to be 30 cents to remove, and now it's $8.
$12.
Yes, it's just it's really crazy. It's gotten really crazy, guys.
So the last fees that we wanted to kind of walk you guys through are storage fees. And those are coming in a little later, more around April, the adjustments are. But Chelsea, why don't you walk us through what these are and also what can we do about it?
Absolutely. Storage fees, if you're not watching your inventory management, these are the fees that are going to rock your business. I refer to them as the silent killers because, and judging on what we saw in the poll that we did at the beginning of this, fulfillment fees, we feel that. We feel that every single time we make a sale. The things that we don't really pay attention to are the months that go by with our products that maybe aren't our best sellers, but we're incurring fees. And maybe, we've been so used to focusing on revenue that we're not focusing on marketing for profit necessarily. Marketing teams don't necessarily feel it's their responsibility to sell through slow sellers, to help to sell through items that you really want to liquidate, because that's not driving the revenue, and that's the statistic they're usually looking at. Sell through and profitability need to be the shift that marketing makes, and inventory needs to come in and provide the reporting to show these are the items that are not moving. So first and foremost, we have the monthly storage fees. You're going to pay a monthly storage fee no matter what. And by monthly storage fee, it's not just what you had at the point where they did the assessment. They're going to look back at that entire month and take an average and charge you for the average inventory that you held that month in inventory. So that's something to keep in mind, is that you're going to be paying on what, not just, hey, I had, 10,000 units now. It's like, you had 12,000 units on average in the last month. You're paying on that. That didn't increase significantly. It went from 82 cents per cubic foot, and it is by cubic foot. And there are ways, there is a formula to take your inches and divide and put it into cubic feet to be able to assess what am I paying monthly per unit. So that's something that you should understand, especially for the products that you feel are incurring the most cost. But it went from 82 cents to 87 cents per cubic foot for standard products. It's less for overstock products. But that's the first piece. And the thing that you need to understand is that every single month you are paying on that same inventory again. So every month that you keep that inventory in stock, just on monthly fees alone, you're making less and less profit per unit. So that's the basis. But then we have two new fees. We always had long-term storage, which was $6.90 per cubic foot at the 1 year mark. It's very uncommon for sellers to keep inventory in stock in the fulfillment centers for an entire year. Not very common. Amazon has added something this last year called aged inventory. They introduced it last year, and it started at the 9-month mark, the 270-day mark. And basically that was an additional fee before the 1-year mark, where they said, in addition to, at that point, it was 82 cents, you're going to pay an additional $1.50 per cubic foot. And it's stacked on top of it. So when we talk about these fees, one stacks on top of the other. It's not, okay, now you're switching. It's 2022, it was 82 cents plus 150 until we got to the end of the year. And then if you had it in a year, you had long-term storage fees. They've kind of combined long-term storage and aged inventory this year. And instead of that 9-month mark, they're shifting it to basically to 6 months, to 180 days. And they're changing the structure. So instead of $1.50 per month until we get to the year, it starts at 6 months, and every 30 days it increases. So it starts 50 cents, then $1, then $1.50, then it leaps to, at 9 months, $3.80, then $4 per cubic foot, then $4.20, and then we get into the 1 year where it's $6.90. And so you're just paying fees on fees on fees, and you're faced with a dilemma of, is it going to be more expensive for me to try to sell through this, for me not to pay attention to that, for marketing not to really see that that's their job to move that inventory? Otherwise, you're faced with what we just talked about, removals. You have, storage fees or removals, or you can sell through it. So creating a plan for inventory to keep marketing aware of that they need a marketing plan for this inventory. Otherwise, like I said, the silent profit killer is going to kill your profitability without you even noticing it.
And Chelsea, there's some tools out there that might help with that, right?
Yes. Specifically with, I think you're referring to the MasterCard and calculator, which is a little bit of a different topic. We're going to get into offsetting. Oh, you're talking about tracking inventory.
Yes, I'm talking about your tools.
Yes.
I'm talking about that's SoStocked.
Yes.
I'm talking about inventory minded
Being modest, I guess. We have something that I call inventory minded marketing, which is specific reports that the inventory team supplies to the marketing team so that the marketing team can improve their marketing plans and then send it to the inventory team. And it's through these reports, it's like this conversation that's going on. And all of a sudden you've got these two teams that are actually one team working towards the goals of sell-through and profitability together. And so we've created reports within SoStocked, and I teach on it constantly because it affects cash flow, profitability, restock limits, inventory performance index. It touches so much of your business, and it's 4 or 5 reports. It's actually pretty simple once you get the processes installed into your team.
That's awesome.
There's one more fee. This only affects, Amazon estimates 7.5%. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Only affects 7.5% of sellers in Amazon's estimation, but very interesting. There's a fee called the storage utilization fee, and they're looking at your entire catalog, and they're seeing from your entire catalog, how much are you storing versus shipping? How much are you shipping out versus how much are you storing? And they're looking at a 13 week period, a rolling 13-week period. And if you are based on that ratio of selling versus storing versus shipping, if you have over 26 weeks of inventory, they're going to start charging you a fee on top of that. So you can get into, you've got monthly fees, you've got aged inventory, and you've got the storage utilization fee all stacked on top of each other. So if you've got a really catalog wide, a slow moving business, that's something that can really start to bite.
So we just walked you guys through, this kind of timeline of fees, and we were kind of scratching the surface here on what you can do about it. That white paper that we're dropping directly to you guys, hopefully at the end of this week, is going to be a great resource for you to kind of see where you fit in each category, in each chart, where you might be able to address different areas of your business, how much is in storage right now? And like, what is that costing you? There's a lot of different tools inside that white paper that will help you. Hopefully these quick tips are also jogging some things in your mind that you can think about, like, okay, actually, I need to go address that. The reason we're doing this webinar now is not only because these fees are starting to drop, but also because if you don't get ahead of this, you will find yourself in a position as the year goes on where you have lost way more money than you knew you were losing. And so we want to give you these tools right at the get-go of the year so that you can get ahead of it. And then also start squeezing profitability out of other areas of your business to offset some of these changes. Like Vanessa said, this isn't going anywhere. This is just part of our life of being in the world of e-commerce. And so we have to consistently adapt and continue to make our businesses profitable. And for those of us who are like willing to really jump in there and address these various areas of our business, we're going to be able to continue to rise and compete in the marketplace. So what I want to shift to at this point is what can we actually do to beat the profitability squeeze that offsets this influx of fees and these also other changes like inflation and the ad costs rising and things like that. So Yael, you look at businesses every single day. They come to you and they say, am I ready to sell? Am I not? What can I do to get my business in a position to sell? And you normally see a lot of different things. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit first, just what kind of businesses come to your door? What do you see when they come to you? And then also, what are things you start advising them to do to start beating that profitability squeeze?
Sure. So first of all, those who come, there's actually a difference between this year and the previous one. Like I said earlier, not only those who are selling and are in the process, but those who come to us and want to sell. I think 8 out of 10 we tell them to work first on the profitability before they proceed, because at that stage today, maybe not 8 out of 10, but I don't know, 6, 7.
That's a big number. I mean, 8 out of 10, like that's a significant amount of people who think they're ready that actually need to go back and do some work.
Yes, they don't necessarily think they're ready. They know they have problems. They know it hasn't been an easy year, but they want to understand what to do, because then we're going to talk about it maybe later, but many of them don't know where the problem is. They don't necessarily know the benchmark, and so they don't know exactly what to focus on. I'll start with, maybe before I say what you can do, and many of you know most of the areas. I'll start by saying what you shouldn't do, where you shouldn't cut costs. We see so. The first most important one from our perspective is the tariff and duties. Many sellers think that this is a good place to cut, and so often the supplier actually takes care of everything, and they turn on blind eye, and they don't know exactly what the supplier does. They know they don't necessarily pay the full price. And sometimes the classification, the HS codes, isn't correct, and so they kind of change it to pay less. That's not the right place to go, because if we're talking, forget about exit for a second. First of all, it's illegal. But even if you're, even if you are doing that when you want to sell the business, the buyer won't continue to do it. So when you sell it, they're going to calculate what is the real profit if you were to pay it correctly. So you didn't save anything on that when it comes to exits, and don't do it. And by the way, Mexico, that we're all talking about, and we're gonna meet there, some of us. That's a good place to look at if your tariffs are very high, and try to think of alternatives to China if that's the case in relation to your product. So that's not to do. Another place not to go to is the obviously buying reviews instead of PPC and other ways to push the products. I think that this, by the way, is quite rare. I mean, in these days, most sellers know that review manipulation is on Amazon's radar, so they are more subtle, and if they do it, it's through various means. My advice on this is stay far from any review manipulation. Everything is Amazon looks at everything, including inserts, including every type of insert that's sent to the website and then ask for review. And so just stay away for that. What you can do, you can control, like Vanessa said, the costs that are rising, but there are many things you can control in your business. And what you should probably do, and this is what we see our sellers do on that year where they prepare, is to go through every aspect of their business and see where, after all, it can be optimized. And you'll be surprised. I'm surprised every day to see sellers that that have an amazing business that everybody wants to buy, and yet their product listing is far from being optimized. And then we look at the pricing. Many sellers haven't touched the price of the selling price for a year. And that's not always necessarily optimized, and that's something you should look at. It's sometimes very complex. And speaking of, Chelsea mentioned earlier the inventory management and storage fees. It's a bit of a loop, because if many sellers have ordered too much inventory last year because they had problems on the year before, and so they pay a lot of storage fees, and now at the end of the year they want to get rid of the inventory, so they sell at a lower price, and then the margins go down, and so the whole business doesn't look so good at that point. And that's a kind of loop. They overspend on PPC to get rid of the inventory. So once you're okay on the inventory management, all these should kind of be more optimized, and then you can really look at every point. PPC is not easy to optimize. It has become very complex. We were talking about it on our separate webinar. It has become so complex that some think that it's going to be either machines or agencies, and that's it. Nobody else will be able to understand it. It's not an easy place to optimize, but you can definitely think of alternatives to PPC. And I think that there's a kind of consensus that 2023 is going to be the year of alternatives to PPC. So we're going to see influencers, you're going to see platforms. We're, by the way, investing in companies in that area, in the influencer marketing. DSP is going to be bigger this year. And then, of course, there's social media, marketing around social media, Instagram, TikTok. You're going to see that more and more this year. So that's obviously something you control. And I think with the rising cost of PPC, that's something that is going to be the focus this year. And then beyond that, there's the usual suspects. You need to make sure that your cost of goods is optimized. Very often we see sellers who are trying to find just alternative suppliers to lower the risk, because they know that buyers prefer that you have more than one. And then while they do that, they find out that they can pay less for the product, and they were sure they completely optimized that. So that's definitely the place to go and negotiate. And then, of course, there's the packaging that, like we said, that you control the size. We've seen sellers optimizing that after 4 or 5 years of selling the same product. They make a change and boom, and that's a big change on the bottom line. So these are all small things, but when you go one by one and you try to optimize all of them, you'll see the results. That's the bottom line.
That's awesome. That's huge. Chelsea or Vanessa, what would you guys add as far as places that you can beat the profitability squeeze?
Well, I like what Yael said about those areas, and that's why I love the unsexy stuff and the management side. It's because they are neglected, because in the big picture they don't mean a huge amount of percentage wise on your logistics or on your supply or on your revenue, but little by little, like if you add 1% more and 1% more and 0.5% more, at the end of the day, you could be optimizing for 10% more in your profit, right? So one of the areas that I love and I encourage people, and it's insane to me, sometimes I meet people that they have never heard about this, is reimbursements. So Amazon, when you use FBA, Amazon tends to lose and damage your inventory. That's a fact. Like it's a thing that happens. It's around 1% of all your inventory. So if you don't have anybody looking at that area, that is the first place where I will look at. And if you have somebody that is looking at either an internal team or a service provider, one thing that we recommend is that you start auditing their work. Okay, so like auditing the auditor, you need to look if they're doing a great job, because it's very easy to miss stuff. Amazon is getting way more complicated to give money back. And one thing that I'll say, and I had this yesterday with a seller that reached out, guys, most of the things that we see that Amazon do, and they, people or sellers say like, oh, Amazon screw us. They are written in the policy. Like you could go to the policy and read the specific thing that they ask you to do. And most sellers just don't do it, right? They don't do it. And we have getting hit by things like the pesticide keywords or restrictions for things that were not compliant or things like that. So in the FBA side, there is a very meticulous process, how to prep the shipping, how to do all of this stuff. And if you don't optimize for that, they can take away a lot of things for you. So in this case, the seller sent a shipment that they have been always sent in the same format in boxes, and the box has 8 units inside. But Amazon says like, when you have that, you need to put a label saying sold as a set, right? And they don't have it. So now they split the units. Instead of 8, they're selling, like they're putting the inventory as a package of 1. So customers are complaining. And they're like, yeah, we want to get reimbursed by Amazon because that was their fault. And I'm like, no, that was your fault, because the policy says this. So stick to the policy, read the rules. Like the game has rules. If you read them, it's very clear, right? Even when they are not enforcing rules, they can switch like this. So reimbursement is a great area to look at. Like, as I said, it's getting more complicated to get reimbursements. That's why we need to get better at complying on all of the things that they ask us for. And for that, we at Carbon 6 have an amazing service, seller investigators, and we have an offer for you guys today. If you sign up for it, it's, I think, profit 500. Erica, that's the slide.
Yeah, your first 500 is free if you sign up today through this webinar. Your first 500 is free. Yeah.
In the slide you can see the code.
Yeah, we'll drop that right at the end for you guys. I think some of the things that you guys have brought up are like so massive and also not easy to do. And it's also not easy to know where to start first. We've talked about inventory minded marketing and making sure stuff's not getting stuck. We've talked about reimbursements and logistics and sourcing a little bit. How do you guys, Yael, when people come to you and they're like, great, now you've given us all these things, how do you help them know where to start?
Erica, did you want me to add a little bit in terms of offsetting? Because we didn't cover that side of things.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Why don't you jump in there?
Yeah, because I had a couple of things. And some examples. We did talk about inventory minded marketing. And one of the things that this can handle is if you're sending a lot of air shipments, then it might be because you don't have systems in place to actually do ocean freight. Maybe you're always, maybe you're constantly about to run into inventory, and it can be a huge difference. We had a seller who actually was able to recover 45 cents per unit because she was getting her inventory in a good pattern and adopting things like, safety stock, or we call it safety stock or buffer stock. And all of a sudden she was doing ocean freight. So adding 45 cents a unit across your entire catalog or even across an entire SKU is hugely impactful. So I can't emphasize enough the need for, for proper inventory management. Beyond that, Yael talked about improving logistics and how can you improve shipping. And a huge piece of that people are not capitalizing on is their optimization of their cartons and their pallets. There are a lot of people, most people rely on their suppliers to tell how many units per carton, and then those cartons get put on pallets. And there are not few sellers who are only using 70 or 80% of the entire pallet capacity, meaning that you've got 20 to 30% of your pallets. You could be cutting that cost. You could have 20% less pallets that you're using. You could have less cartons, and then you're paying less in per carton fees. You're paying less in pallet storage fees. And beyond that, if you do what Yael said and reduce the size of your product, then you can put more units per carton, more units per pallet. And actually, a friend of mine, maybe some of you know, Dr. Travis Ziegler, he had a sunglasses product in a hard case, put it in a soft case, and it completely changed his, all of his fees, changed his carton optimization, his pallet optimization. And I asked him, how much did you save in that one SKU across a year? And he said $70,000 that he saved on that one SKU. And he applied that to several other SKUs. There were hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting right there in his business with just a switch like that. So that's massive. I was talking to Toma Rabinovich, and he said that he recently worked with a client where they were able to shave $6 off of their fees for a particular product just by reducing it by 2 inches. These are massive things that you can, and sometimes it takes even retooling the product, which is what he had done in that case. So start auditing your entire catalog for things like this. It can be massive.
It's so huge.
Yeah.
Chelsea.
I'll add one thing. It's like we need to start getting better at knowing our numbers by a SKU level. And Managed by Stats help with that, but it is so important because at the end of the day, we see we did 1 million revenue and 20% profit, but some SKUs are 3% profitable. And if you keep building a business with things that are not optimized or they're not great, you should kill them. Mm-hmm. And I do think that we should need to assess in a SKU level. Does this make sense for us moving forward? Or if a single SKU is not working, bundle that up. If they're still selling, do something, but understand the SKU level. And the other thing, adding to what Chelsea said, leverage the relationships. And Yael touched on that. Negotiating with suppliers, telling suppliers look, I need to optimize for density and space. Can you help me to repackage or resign the product so I can make it smaller? And that is probably something that you could talk or do if you have a good relationship with your supplier. If you're just sending emails every so often, hey, I need 1,000 more units, that's probably not a good, that ask will be random, right? You won't be able to do that. So treating those relationships as partnerships, and they can see that you are also suffering this side, right? So I think it will be better for everybody across the board if you start going to those vendors, distributors, service providers, and say hey, how can we optimize for margins here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll share, I think, a slide a little later. Because of this problem, and we actually face this in our own business, we created something called a master carton calculator or a carton pallet calculator, which does help you to optimize for, reducing your cartons and reducing your pallets. And it goes through and it looks at your unit size and your pallet dimensions. And it will actually do the math for you and give you a savings report and a pack list that you can send to your supplier and say, hey, are we able to adjust the cartons so that we can optimize our profit margin? And the pack list will show them how to do that.
So we are loading you guys up here. With so many things. We will make this recording available, but I do want to help you guys prioritize. And so Yael and their team have some tactics to help you guys understand how to prioritize, like what to start with. So Yael, why don't you close us out with some of that prioritization techniques, and then I'll make sure to let you guys know all the various things that we have available for you.
Yeah, tough in the 5 minutes.
You
but,
can go a little over. We're
yeah.
still here. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, first of all, every business is different. And I think in every business, at the end, we tackle something else. The first step of our analysis is exactly what Vanessa said, and that's knowing your numbers to the SKU. In some of the businesses, those that have even 200 SKUs, sometimes, we sit with the seller, we look at the numbers, and then we cut the tail, and turns out that out of 200, there's only 30 that are really selling, or 35. So buyers get scared when they see 200, but at the end, there's only a few selling. So start by understanding what's selling, what's losing, and many sellers have losing products, and they don't realize it because they look at the overall picture. And the way to do it is to start working with as a first step, start working with software like Managed by Stat that you mentioned, or Seller Board, or Seller Legend, or any of these tools. I think Helium 10 has one as well. And be on it. I mean, include all your cost of goods and look at it every day. That's the only way you can understand your number these days. And I think this year, 2023, you actually have no choice anymore but to do that. When you had 40% or 35%, when I started in 2016, I mean, these were the numbers. These days, you really have to optimize everything. Now, once you know it, okay, now you know your numbers, and then what? So what we do is we look one by one at the different parameters. There are so many, so I can't, get to all of them, but I can mention a few benchmarks to tell you if you're doing well or you're not doing so well. So one of the things, anyone who's looking at businesses, and in particular buyers who are looking at Amazon businesses, one of the first things they look at is the ACoS of the business. And do you guys know what's good ACoS these days? More or less. So I'll tell you.
15%.
How many? 10%? What did you say?
Vanessa, what'd you say?
15%, maybe?
She said 15.
I think it's higher than that. I think you can't get that low anymore, right?
Yeah, so hard to get that low. So first of all, if you have less than 25%, you're amazing. Okay, very, very good. If you're between 25 to 33, you would be in a good place. And then 33 to 45, you're okay, but it can become an issue. And then above 45, you're not in a good place. So that's kind of the range. You want to be less than 25%, but anywhere 25 to 33 is still okay. Now, as for your cost of goods, the percentage of your cost of goods out of the total sales. So if it's less than 20%, it's very good. If your cost of goods is between 20 to 25%, that's still okay. And then 25 to 30, it's fair, but it can be an issue. And then more than that is that's not so good. And then there are other things to look at. So you can look at the ROI, which is the profit versus the cost of goods. Divided by the cost of goods. So the ROI above 100% is very good, and then 65 to 100 is still good, and then 50 to 65 can start becoming an issue, etc. And then the last thing I would look at is maybe the growth of the business. So everyone wants growth, right? And like I told you, this year actually most of our clients have seen growth. The margins were an issue, but the growth was good. And so anything above 20% is amazing. But 0 to 20% would be okay. I mean, as long as you're not going down, your business is considered good. So any profit between above 0 would be okay. Of course, above 30% is amazing. So that's kind of a range. That's just an example, but if you want to discuss it, feel free to reach out and we'll talk about your particular business. When we start a year before the exit, we have time, so we prepare a detailed P&L and we go one by one and we understand what to work on and work on it together.
And when do you like for businesses to reach out to you and kind of start digging in? Like, is it a year ready before?
Yeah, about a year. If they reach out before, we can make a long-term plan and then start later, but we come in usually about a year before or later.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we've given you guys so much. We want to give you a little bit of good news at the end. Like, we gave you a lot of things to do and a lot of like kind of heavier news. What is the good news, guys, that we want to leave people with as far as like, here's a whole bunch of information. Here's all the work you guys need to be doing to really squeeze the profitability out of your business this year. Oh, and all these fees are dropping. But what can we encourage sellers with as they kind of leave with this information?
Well, one of the great things is that at least now right? And the importance of this is that now there is more transparency on all of the things that are coming. So this is not a surprise for you at the end of this year, okay? So that's one thing. And now is, what are we going to do about it, right? All of us have the same business or the same structure as far as like selling on Amazon. So there are multiple areas that we mentioned here that you need to go and look at. So this is not impossible. And I bet that nobody here has a 100% or completely optimized business. It's just nothing that exists, and you will always be optimizing. So the opportunity and the space to be better is there now that you know and understand where are the areas that you need to look at. So it's the time to implement things. So if you take at least like 3 things away from this webinar of like, okay, I'm gonna end this webinar and then I'm gonna go to download my report to see what I can do to message my supplier or my PPC agency or whatever to discuss these things. So that's it. That's the opportunity, right? And Chelsea said something super important of like, everybody's in the same boat, right? Yeah. Like, this is not only for the people in this webinar, it's for everybody across the whole marketplace. So the ones that are here and have the information have the opportunity to optimize, and we're gonna see a bunch of people going down this year just because they don't know where to optimize.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, your competitors are going to be faced with the same thing, and it's possible that your competitors will, like Vanessa said, start falling off and no longer start closing their businesses, like the story that Vanessa told at the beginning of the year. And that presents another opportunity. And I think that Amazon's long play is unfortunately getting some of those smaller sellers, some of those less optimized sellers, some of those, for sure, the sellers that can't can't sell through inventory. They want them out. They want people who can sell through. So keeping Amazon happy with focusing on sell through. If you had to focus on one inventory metric, sell-through would be it, because it touches every other metric in the inventory performance index. And so that's extremely important. I would say the other piece of good news is that you have, weird, unsexy people like us who like to focus on the unsexy side of things. We are all have a huge affinity for this side of things. We very much enjoy it. It's a passion. It's not a passion for a lot of people, but luckily you have the weird people like us who really like this, and we're as Carbon 6, we decided, met at the end of the year, and we decided profit was going to be the flag that we plant in the first quarter because it is that important. So the rest of this quarter, we are going to be talking about it. We're going to be training on it. We're developing new resources for it continually throughout the year, or throughout the quarter, so that we can set you guys up to be able to benefit from all the things that we talked about.
So I won't get offended that you called us weird and unsexy, but
because it's true.
I threw myself in there as well.
but
awesome.
I wear it proudly.
yeah, but I actually agree with the good news. I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, when I went to law school and I was going back home and I was telling my husband, oh, that was really hard, and he said, oh, that's good. It's good. I mean, when you're a good seller and you know what you're doing, and when it's hard for everyone, it's usually good for the more advanced seller. It's not easy for someone who starts now, but the medium in advance, for them, it's an advantage because the smaller one, it will be very difficult for them. So if you're on this webinar, you haven't just started yesterday usually. These are all kind of good news for you. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think what we're all saying is that there is money in your business for you to go take hold of right now. And your job is to go find that money that is sitting in your business, that uncovered profit that is absolutely available to you inside your business. And we want to help you. Fortunet wants to help you. Carbon 6 would love to help you. And all three of these women have so much expertise here in helping squeeze that profit. So I know they'd love for you to connect with them on LinkedIn, and we'll give you guys various opportunities in the follow-up emails to stay connected as well. And we're encouraging you guys to continue to professionalize your business. Like if you're a seller, become a professional seller, get better at that expertise. Don't just trust that top line number, dig to that bottom line. So I'm going to leave you just with a few things. Chelsea mentioned that master carton calculator. We knew we'd talk about it. So we put a slide in here. That link has been shared in the chat. Snag that link, go run your numbers, see what's going on in your business. We also mentioned this white paper that's coming soon. You guys are going to be the very first email that goes out because you took the time to be here with us today. We're going to get you guys that white paper first. We'll be sharing that in the information more broadly. We'll be breaking down insights throughout the quarter. Lots of experts are contributing to these conversations, including Fortunet and Yael. So we're really grateful for that. And then Vanessa mentioned this promo for you guys. If you want to go audit your auditor, if you have people running your audits right now and you're happy with it, but you think, who knows, maybe there's more money out there, jump in. If you've never heard of reimbursements, then sure as heck should jump in and get a reimbursement run. We'll run a free audit for you and tell you what's missing. Thanks you guys so much. For those of you who stayed late, which is literally all of you, we really appreciate it. I know we loaded you up today, and normally we'd leave tons of time for Q&A, but don't worry, we're running these webinars on a consistent cadence, and we're going to continue to talk about this throughout the quarter. So really appreciate you guys being here. To each of you, wonderful women. This is an all-star cast today, so thanks for being here. And
Thank you, Erica.
Hope you guys have an awesome day. Okay, bye guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.